Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us for our webinar here, Get What's Yours, Maximizing Your Social Security. My name is Alex Oliver. I'm a financial advisor with First National Corporation. And in affiliation with Schwartz & Schwartz, we do a financial boot camp every tax season to give you a little bit more education on some various personal finance issues. And so hopefully we're going to give you some ideas here on today's topic. I'll go over some of our others here as well as we go along into the spring. Just to introduce you a little bit to First National Corporation, we are what's called a registered investment advisor. We're located down on the South Shore in Rockland, Massachusetts. And we have two sides to our practice. One primarily is on the wealth management side, where we work with individual families and clients to help them prepare for their retirement planning lifestyles and their college savings plans. And then the other side of our business is working as a dedicated retirement practice. We serve as a fiduciary on a little over 50 401k or simple IRA retirement plans, also profit sharing and cash balance plans. So there's a lot of different aspects there that we can help with. And through those kinds of experiences, we do a lot of consultation one-on-one with our clients, again, that engage us full-time or even just the participants within the 401k plans that we manage. So again, as I mentioned, our financial bootcamp series goes through 4 different seminars for 2019. And as you can see today, we're doing the Social Security seminar. But just so you are aware, we have a few more coming up in the next couple of months. The Economic and Investment Overview for 2019, which should be particularly interesting given the volatility this past December. That's going to be on February 7th. Why do stocks go up and down? A stock market introduction. Just a really brief, simple explanation as to what kinds of things go into the stock market. A little introduction as to the kinds of things that investment advisors like myself look at to evaluate investments. So I think that one might be helpful for everybody, even if you're not buying and selling your own stocks. And then finally, generational wealth transfer for those that have really figured out they've saved enough for retirement. They're pretty comfortable with where they are, but they're thinking about moving assets over to the next generation or going to charities, for example. There are a lot of great strategies out there that we implement with our clients, and we'd like to introduce a few of those to you on March 21st. So to sign up for those boot camps, as you did for this one, schwartzaccountants.com/events/bootcamp. On that page, you'll also be able to see our previously recorded webinars, which go through many different types of topics. If you're 25 with student loans, we've got a webinar for you. If you've got some basic financial planning questions, we've got a webinar for that. And then obviously some more complex strategies, again, more charitable contribution conversations or retirement planning conversations. There are a lot of other topics we've already covered here. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started with Social Security. And this is a major disclosure I like to put up, especially for this particular conversation. Social Security can be pretty complex. It wasn't meant to be that way, but because there are different incomes with the family, different age differences, there are divorces, there are widows, obviously, a lot of different complex topics that make Social Security an interesting topic. So with everything that we talk about today, I really encourage you not to take this as any advice. I would encourage you to get a special evaluation from your own advisor or a Social Security expert before implementing any of these strategies that I might talk about today. So the name of this presentation, another resource I might just point you to if you do want to take this on your own, is a book that was written, I think originally in 2015, then revised in 2016. Called Get What's Yours, The Secrets of Maxing Out Your Social Security, with the understanding that we all look at Social Security as something we've paid into for our entire working life, and we really want to maximize that benefit. This will really get into the nitty-gritty as to what your particular situation might be. So this is actually, $11 or $12 on Amazon, a very cheap resource to try and get you a little bit of a head start maybe before you call Social Security or, again, hire an advisor to have this conversation. So I like to point you to there as a resource right off the bat. So let's just start by introducing Social Security and why this is such a big issue. Back when this was started, I forget the year exactly that Social Security came into place, but at that time, the Social Security benefit started at age 65, but life expectancy at that time was only about 63 years old. So most people actually wouldn't even claim Social Security, and even if they did, it would be for a very short amount of time. Today, the retirement age has only moved up 2 years, up to 67 for somebody born today, but life expectancy has certainly increased. And so this graph really tries to, emphasize that point. That whole mentality of getting what's yours and getting what you want out of Social Security makes many people want to take it as early as possible. But what we want to keep in mind with Social Security is that we are living to be quite a long time. You can see here that a male that reaches age 65, they have a 50% chance of making it to age 87 and a 25% chance of making it to 93. So let me just take that number for a second. A 50% chance to make it to 87, that means half are, passing away prior to 87, half are living longer than that. And if you're in this webinar and you consistently made higher than the median average income of $50,000 or $60,000 a year, it's likely that you're going to be above average in your life expectancy. That's just statistically that higher incomes typically leads to longer life, access to better care and whatnot. So I would really encourage you to look at that as we continue this presentation. Again, females live longer than males, so they have a 50% chance of living to 89. And then finally, I think this one really hits the point home. At least one person of a couple that makes it to age 65 has a 50% chance of making it to 93. And that's important because some of these strategies that we talk about are actually really dependent. If you are a married couple, what your spouse does with their Social Security might actually affect what's going to happen with your financial life. So we really want to take this from a viewpoint that we're looking at both spouses when planning that income. So despite all of that, despite that conversation, we still see that most retirees, again, have that mentality. I'm going to turn 62 and I don't know how long I'm going to live. So even though the benefit that I'm going to get is reduced, I want to collect it early and just start making that income. We actually see that about 73% of Americans are collecting a reduced early benefit, while as only 27% are waiting till full retirement age or getting an increased benefit at, say, age 70. Now, many people in these boxes over here, are very low income and really are dependent on Social Security income, or maybe they, were disabled or unable to get back into the workforce. And that's, a completely different topic. But given the choice, what I'll be outlining for you for about 5 or 10 minutes here is how crucially important it is to be waiting to take your Social Security benefit. So let's just talk a little bit about how Social Security is actually calculated. And again, you may know this already. Some of you may have already been getting statements. You should be getting them every 5 years or so. But if you're not, you can always log on to ssa.gov down here. ssa.gov just stands for the Social Security Administration. And you'll be able to see what your projected benefits are. The way that Social Security benefits are calculated are by taking your top 35 years of earnings. So when you work for 40 years, as an example, they're going to take the top 35 when you earn the most, when you receive the most credits, and calculate your benefit off of that. Why is that important to know? Well, usually when you're 62, 63, 64 years old, you are making more money and getting more credits towards Social Security than you were as a 25 or 26-year-old. Therefore, every year you keep working keeps replacing zeros or low income years when you were younger. So that can make a really big difference on what your benefit is going to be. As you get that benefit, you should be getting an outline as to whether you take it at full retirement age, whether you take it at 62, or whether you wait until you're 70. And again, everything will be on ssa.gov. One note I should say before we go on too far is that on that Social Security statement, it is projecting your benefits based on your income going through full retirement age. So if you're 55 right now and you just made $100,000, your benefit is assuming you're going to continue to make $100,000 until your full retirement age of 66 or 67 years old. So that's important. We'll come back to that topic in a second. Let's just talk about how much I might expect to get from Social Security, because these are the maximum amounts that you might be able to get from Social Security. The only way you would be able to get the maximum amount is if you spent 35 years making more than the Social Security wage base. In 2019, this year, the Social Security wage base is $132,000 of income. So if you make more than that, you're getting the full credit that you can in 2019. And if you did that for 35 straight years, as a 62-year-old, you could expect to get around $26,000 per year. 65, when you take your benefits, it's 33 grand a year. And at age 70, if you waited the longest and again made 35 years worth of high earnings, you're going to get about 45 grand a year. So for those in the webinar that might be doctors or higher income professionals, just know that yes, this is a pretty significant amount of money, but certainly not going to replace most people's lifestyles, again, for higher income earning people. The average benefit given out to Social Security in 2018 was just about $17,000 per year. So if you're not a high earning income professional and maybe even spent a lot of years not working because you were raising children and whatnot, this might be the number that you're actually looking at. So if you're currently 62 and you're making $60,000 or $70,000 this year and you're spending most of that, again, you should realize that only $17,000 of your income is actually going to be replaced, which is a pretty low number and not a large amount of money that you can really rely on. That's not its purpose. It's meant to be a supplemental income. But again, I just want to give you those numbers so that way you can have some perspective on that. So, again, I think I've alluded to this already, but collecting early really rarely makes sense in a lot of ways. So first of all, we should know already that if we collect before our full retirement age, FRA's full retirement age, in this case for a 66-year-old, our benefits are going to be reduced, okay? If we start right at age 62, the minute that we're allowed to take that, we'll only receive 75% of the benefit that we would have gotten had we just waited. So that's a pretty significant amount of money that we're giving up. And I want you to think about other areas, and we're going to get into some math here in a little bit, but some other areas that might help you to figure out whether or not you should take this benefit early. For example, are you actually retiring right now? Social Security is really designed to be giving income to people who have zero income whatsoever. So even if you're working part-time before you get to full retirement age, you're going to be penalized in a lot of different ways for taking that benefit. You're going to have benefits withheld, you're going to have benefits taxed. So if you're a 63-year-old and you're making $30,000 or $40,000 per year, if you don't need the income, I would strongly advise waiting on taking Social Security. There are some other areas where if you're retiring early, let's just say you're retiring at 58 and you're not going to be working at all, you'll have zero income for the next 10 years. You also need to make sure you really take a hard look at that Social Security statement to see if it's accurate. Because I mentioned earlier, those statements are assuming you're going to be continuing to work up until age 66 or 67. And if you're going to retire at 58, I actually just ran an analysis recently for a couple of mine. Their benefit is actually going to go down $5,000 per year because of an early retirement decision, which, may not be a significant amount of money to some people, but for others, $5,000 a year for the rest of your life can really make a big difference. So make sure we, take that into consideration. Longevity, how is your health, and is there any expectation of longevity? Do you have any grandmothers or parents that live to age 80 or 90? Sometimes I'll have clients that maybe say, actually, no, my parents passed away in their late 60s or early 70s. Even then, I might still say, let's be careful here, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to pass away at the same time span. And this is really our insurance of going against living too long and running out of money. So how's your health today? Do you expect to live for a long time? There's an analysis that, again, we'll get into here in a second to help you with that kind of decision. And then finally, as I, again, alluded to earlier, are you married? What is the age difference between your spouse? And what kind of benefits will your spouse be eligible for? Big differences there in our planning process, okay? So collecting early, I'm going to continue to go along with this here. One of the things that will happen to you if you're still earning money while you are claiming a Social Security benefit is you'll actually have benefits withheld from you. So if you're under your full retirement age, which again is usually 66 or 67 for everybody in this webinar, if you make more than the $17,640, $1 of your benefits will be withheld for every $2 above that limit. Okay, you'll get that benefit back. It's being withheld from you, but you'll still be getting a reduced benefit. Instead of having, if you had just waited until you were 66 or 67 to take it, it's not getting that increased amount. It's getting given back to you at a much more reduced rate. So you will have benefits withheld if you claim Social Security while you're working. Once you get to full retirement age, this just talks about the year that you are in full retirement age. So if you're turning 66 this year, if you make over this amount, you'll have some benefits withheld. But once you get to the month after your full retirement age, you will not have any benefits withheld. So in that scenario, you could still continue to work and get a Social Security benefit on top of that and not have to run into this issue. So again, at least waiting till full retirement age is going to make sense for most people to take their Social Security benefit. Having said that, there's just one other thing that you should know, and that is that Social Security benefits also are taxable income to you if you make a certain amount of money. So right now, let's just say that you're a 66-year-old and your spouse is 60 years old. You might be thinking about taking your Social Security benefit because you've already reached full retirement age. But if your spouse is still working and you're claiming a joint tax return, once your income gets over, let's just say $44,000, up to 85% of those Social Security benefits are taxable to you. So be careful if you're trying to run the numbers on your own to figure out what your break-even points are, because you're actually going to be losing some of that income due to taxes, and that's due to your spouse's income being on your tax return. So again, another reason why usually the best advice if you're really trying to optimize Social Security is to wait until both of you are retired, or in the case that you are not currently married, again, making sure that you wait until you are retired completely and have no income. Okay. I like to throw this one in here really quickly because as we go along here, you do have the ability to change your mind. If you did so happen to claim Social Security benefits in the last 1 year, you start to hear this presentation and think, oh no, I'm not sure if I mess something up here. You do have 1 year to change your mind, pay back those benefits, and then your Social Security gets reset so it can start to accrue and you can get that increased benefit that we're going to keep talking about. So just know that there is that option. If you've made the mistake of claiming in the last year, you can change your mind. Okay, so those were kind of the downsides there. I really want to make sure I raised the red alarm around. But now let's talk about some of the benefits of waiting, because waiting on Social Security can actually have a huge financial impact for you. The way it works is that you will actually get an 8% guaranteed increase in your Social Security benefit for every year that you wait after your full retirement age. Okay, and 8% is a really important number to understand. As an investment advisor, when I work with a retirement client, I like to tell them that generally we'd like to get them to a 4 or 5% withdrawal rate. So they might withdraw 4 or 5% of their assets during retirement. And then my goal is to have those investments earn 4 to 5%. So that way they don't erode principal as they go into retirement. 4 to 5%. Keep that number in mind and compare that to a guaranteed rate of return of 8% on Social Security. So mathematically, a lot of times I might even tell my clients, I'd rather you take out assets from your joint account or your IRA, again, obviously depending on the situation. It may mathematically make sense to live off your own assets and let your Social Security benefit increase. Because again, a guaranteed 8% return for the rest of your life. And from a financial advisor's perspective, what we're trying to really manage is making sure you don't run out of money. So if we can get you to age 70 with a very high benefit and you live to 105, at least we have that insurance that you have a high benefit coming from Social Security. That's a really important thing to understand, okay? So the longer you wait, you get a nice increase in benefit on Social Security. So what inevitably ends up coming up is that there's some question about a break-even point, and that, again, obviously depends on your longevity. Obviously, at age 62, you get your income a lot earlier, and then you may even make the argument that you're going to just go ahead and reinvest that money back into the stock market. So you'll get a smaller benefit for more years at age 62 versus waiting to get a larger benefit at age 70. So the question always becomes, what is the break-even point on this? And this is just a really general idea, just a general example that typically these break-even points will range between 78 and 82 years old. So if you knew for some reason that you were not going to make it to 78, you knew you were going to pass away at 73, sure, it might make sense for you to take that benefit at 62 instead. But as I showed you earlier, the numbers say that if you're 65 years old today, you have a 50% chance of living till at least 87 or 88. And since we're not sure when we're all gonna pass away, we want to really take a hard look at that and say, well, the math says that I'm probably going to be better off waiting on my benefit as opposed to taking it early. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind again as we continue to go along here. There's a few other topics that are pretty interesting with Social Security that, again, really come down to more specific situations. So, for example, spousal benefits. If I'm going to use some stereotypical names here, traditionally, for the last 40 or 50 years, the way that family dynamics have worked is that the male in the household has been the primary earner, whereas the female in the household maybe has stayed home and taken care of the kids. So again, just using those names and these figures for that purpose, obviously there are, again, many different family dynamics here. But let's just say in this situation, Jack worked all of his life and he's got a primary insurance amount of $2,200. Primary insurance amount just means this is the amount that he would get if he waited till full retirement age, okay? So $2,200. Jill did not work at all in her life, so she has a $0 primary insurance amount. To prevent Jill from being a situation where she gets no Social Security whatsoever, there's what's called a spousal benefit, where Jill is able to get up to half of Jack's primary insurance amount. And in this case, Jill is able to get that amount regardless of what Jack does with his benefit. So what this is looking to illustrate is that her amount will be $1,100, and she'll be able to get that at her full retirement age. Again, let's just say that's age 67 for right now. Whether Jack takes his benefit at age 62, age 67, or age 70, he is going to have his own benefit, whereas Jill is going to have that $1,100 regardless. So again, this is illustrating that if his primary insurance amount is $2,200, if he collects it early, he actually gets a reduced benefit to $1,650. But again, Jill's is still half of his original amount. So that's important to understand because later on we're going to go over a scenario where what Jack does affect Jill, okay? But in the spousal benefit case, it does not. There was a strategy that you should know about or just at least be aware about called file and suspend, and that was where Jack would actually file for his benefits at full retirement age, but then suspend them, meaning that he wasn't going to take that benefit. He would let that benefit grow till age 70. It would allow Jill to have a spousal benefit. So she would actually be able to collect some income while his benefit grew. And that actually was eliminated back in 2016. You'd have to do it before April 30th. So that is gone. If you know other people that have been on the file and suspend topic, you should just know that that's no longer available. However, there's actually a pretty similar strategy called filing a restricted application that may be applicable to you. If you were born before 1954, okay, if you were born before 1954, that option is still available. It's very similar in the sense that you file a restricted application and your spouse can still get a benefit, but you both need to be able to be claiming Social Security benefits today, and there are some other downsides to that. So I would just kind of note here that you should look at talking to a professional before implementing the restricted application strategy, okay? Now, again, obviously, it looks like my slide's not going to come up here. Let me just bring this up again. So with spousal benefits, you have to be married to your ex-spouse for 10 plus years. This is if you were to get divorced. So if you were only married for 7 or 8 years, you will not be able to claim a benefit on your ex-spouse, your ex-husband, or your ex-wife. But again, if you've been married for more than 10 years and you divorce, if your benefit is low, you actually will have the opportunity to claim on their record. There are some important caveats to that because you do have to be unmarried. You cannot have remarried somebody else. Otherwise, that benefit is completely gone. and then you both have to be age 62 to be able to claim that benefit, and you have to be divorced for 2 years. I think most people don't know that fact, and so I would just kind of point that out so that way if you're in that situation and maybe with somebody else now, you may consider not getting remarried if that's going to make a big difference on what your Social Security benefit's going to be. Similarly, survivor benefits, this is when your spouse passes away. If you were still married for 10 or more years, you have to be unmarried or you have to remarry after age 60 to be eligible for survivor benefits. And again, I'll be at least age 60 for that. So again, just some little technical details here that if you're trying to, claim on somebody else's record because they made more money than you throughout their life, you just want to understand the details so that way you don't preclude yourself from actually getting that benefit. Okay. All right, so just wrapping up here because of one more thing. Oops, sorry about that. Let me just get back into my survivor benefits slide right here. Okay. So the survivor benefit, this one is a bigger topic because this will affect what Jack does with his Social Security benefit will actually affect Jill. And again, this is really important topic because right now, women are actually claiming in some way, shape, or form part of their husband's benefit over 50% of the time. You can see in this case, they're actually in 24% of the instances, they're actually claiming only their husband's benefit. And then in 28%, they're claiming partially theirs and partially their husband's benefit. So, a lot of people, I think, look at Social Security and look at it in a silo and what am I going to do with my benefit? But we really need to look at both spouses here to make sure that we're not, hurting the other spouse because typically, women are going to live longer than men and they're going to need this income in those 80s and 90s age brackets when we might be, closer to running out of money. So this example uses that same primary insurance amount from before. So Jack has a $2,200 primary insurance amount. Jill did work a little bit during her life in this case, so she's got a $600 primary insurance amount. In this case, the survivor benefits are going to be higher than what Jill could get from her own benefit. But what happens here is because Jack claims early at 63 years and 6 months, his benefit is then 1833. That is also going to be Jill's benefit, 1833. That's different from the spousal benefit when she would have gotten the $2,200 per month. Now it's only 1833. However, in this case, where Jack actually delays his benefit to age 70, he now gets a benefit of 2904. Jill will also get that survivor benefit of 2904. So by waiting, they've really helped themselves to make sure that both of them won't run out of money, no matter what happens. Okay, so the spousal benefits are different. If you've divorced your spouse, no matter what they do with their benefits is not going to affect what happens to you, but the survivor benefits do affect you. So be making these decisions as a married couple and thinking about your overall comprehensive financial plan and how it's going to affect each other. Okay. So just in closing here, again, I know I went through a lot of things today to try and give you just some different ideas. Social Security, again, is such a complex topic with a lot of different family dynamics, with blended families, with different ages, that it can really hard to fit this all into one presentation. So I do just encourage that you may want to go out and look at some different Social Security timing strategy softwares or consultants. This is just a screenshot of one that we use that will help you to get an idea as to what your break-even strategy would be. For example, if, again, in this case, the spouses are 7 years apart. So we may want to, again, coincide some of their claiming strategies to figure out the older spouse, what they should be doing in relation to the younger spouse and who's earning what kind of retirement assets they have, what they're going to be withdrawing from, with different assumptions for taxes and rates of return. So again, this can be pretty complicated, but luckily there are a lot of resources out there that aren't that expensive. You can usually get a good Social Security analysis for you and your spouse for around $100 or $200. I say that because the I think default option is for people to call the Social Security Administration and answer their questions that way. But there have been a lot of studies that have shown that they actually haven't necessarily always provided the correct answers. You have to understand that there's, many tens of millions of Americans that are claiming Social Security, and not a very big Social Security administration. We're certainly not hiring many more people to work in those call centers. And so they may not always be as on top of the strategies as maybe the people that are calling them. So you may want to look into getting an analysis, something like this, before implementing or calling to ask about these kinds of strategies. Okay. So just to wrap it up, First National Corporation, again, our website here, fncadvisor.com, where we write a lot about these kinds of issues and put different email newsletters out. I'm also going to point you to one of the tabs on here. I know Schwartz & Schwartz works with a lot of dentists, and so we have a dentist tab because we also work with a lot of dentists, specifically catering to some of their financial planning needs. We've actually written an entire ebook to help cover these. So you can actually see that a lot of topics, some of the more basic topics about disability, term life insurance, estate planning, student loans, and Roth IRAs for when they're young, accelerated wealth accumulation for people that are in their 40s and 50s, and then the finish line. This goes over actually a lot of different kind of retirement strategies, selling practices. Even for non-dentists, I think you would actually find this pretty valuable. I'd say 80% of the content would be still pretty relevant for a non-dentist. If you're interested in getting that ebook, it is free to access. You just have to go to fncadvisor.com/dentists, and you'll be able to just put your email in and get that emailed to you in a Kindle or PDF format. So that's just one resource for you to have as you go out here. We have an email newsletter that we put out every week that you can and get access to in addition to a monthly recap. That's also on our website. And then we, again, write a blog. This is my LinkedIn as well, where I post some of my blogs up to. I'd be happy to connect with some of you as well. So thank you for everybody for joining the Social Security webinar, and I hope to see you at some of our other financial boot camps.